everybody's doing okay. This is episode 13 of Slaves of Satan. Um, I'm going bouncing around to a different topic. The last one was about Gerald Gardner and me trying to completely expose and break down Wicca. I think YouTube's shadow banning it because it hasn't got any views yet, as far as I know. But just because it says 0 views, that doesn't mean it's not really reaching anybody, because at the end of the day, YouTube just a computer system and you can't trust it. But before that, I had a video of Alfred Kinsey and a separate one of Harry Hay exposing the pornography um part of the world and how damning that can be to the soul. And the video of Harry Hay exposed how the homosexuality thing got started. And now I'm bouncing around to, well, what else was going on in this era of time, because I'm trying my best to keep it chronologically in order, and specifically not trying to go back any further than 200 years, because I believe the past 200 years have been the most important in history, other than the age of Jesus Christ and the apostles and the age of the Old Testament, because the most changes that happened in the 200-year era, if you study it, and I believe it's the most important in life, that in the history of the world. And like I said on here, and if you're new, the goal to this series is exposing the people that Satan used to change the world to the level that he has, who I call the slaves of Satan. Um, and this is about author Edward Waite and tarot cards. And why I felt like this was important enough to bounce around to a different topic and talk about this individual is because he is who made tarot cards popular with the White Rider deck. And he was also a member of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the same one that a lot of these people have been a member of. Aleister Crowley was a member of it. Samuel Adele McGregor Mathers was a member of it. Theodore Russ was a member of it, and I believe a few more that I've done a video on so far. Um, and he was the co-creator of the White Rider deck, but he put more effort in than Pamela, I believe that's her name. But he's mostly responsible for it, and well, the one of the reasons I want to talk about the tarot cards is because that and a Ouija board, as far as objects go, are the entry point usually for people that get into the occult. Unfortunately, my mom was dabbled in the occult a little bit. For about half her life. Thankfully, she renounced it for the last 20 years. She passed away a few years ago, but at least she at least renounced it for, as far as I know, close to 20 years. Maybe it took 10 to do it completely, but that's all right. And also sometimes, and Christians do this more than anybody else. They'll see somebody in a bad way in life or bad health, and they'll try to accuse them of dabbling in the occult, or doing something wrong, or like tarot cards, Ouija boards. But that's usually not how it is, and they'll also be guilty of accusing people that just don't really fit in with everybody else of being into witchcraft. Like like I've been accused of that the majority of my life, just because I've had long hair. And just because I've had bad luck physically, people think that I did something horrible to deserve this. Now, thankfully, nothing that I have is something that kills you, but it's made my life very hard and very painful. Unfortunately, I'm getting the most help I can. but it's something I still have to live with forever. But I feel like after the two things that we should not accuse anyone of without knowing for sure is witchcraft and homosexuality. Some of the two abominations to the Lord. Because the devil is called the accuser, and we're not supposed to be like Satan, because he's the one that accuses with no proof. And the only proof you need for that is open up Job chapter 1. Tell you everything you need to know. So, most people have seen the tarot cards. The White Rider deck is the most famous by far. That's what you will see in music videos, movies, books. Very popular to put in media. Mostly music videos out of all of them, I would say, and certain games here and there. Um, the usually the main few you see is the Fool, the Devil, um, and those are those. As far as media, that's the main two. There's many. I'm not gonna put all of them up here because there's really no point. I'm not here to promote tarot cards. And I was planning on covering this guy eventually because like I went into Books a Million the other day and I couldn't believe how many tarot cards were on the shelf. I would say between 2 to 300, and you see them everywhere. Is beyond just you don't even have to look for them. You'll see them right. It'll be right in your face when you go into places because they're pushed so hard, and it's the most I would say the most accessible thing to get to draw someone into that. I would argue much more effective than the Ouija board, and hopefully if I can break down how this came about and who came up with it, then people will realize how wrong this is. Now now A. White, what most people call him, author Edward Waite. Obviously, he did not create the tarot cards. They go back as far as the 1500s, but he popularized them with the White Rider deck. Now, other than just being a divination tool, we need to look at look at what fruit this guy bore to, and then we can see that should give people an idea why we should stay away from them and where the end. Because when you look at symbols or some type of um new trend, you have to look at who started it. That tells you all you need to know about it. So, like I said, he was a member of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the same order that Aleister Crowley was in, the same one that Theodore Rush was in, the same one that Samuel Adele McGregor Mathers was in. He was also in the Society's Rosicruciana of Angelia. That's another society that most of these people were in. And when it comes to the Rosicrucian orders, it's endless how many there are too. People don't talk about the different ones as much, there's there's I would say so way over 100 just in America, just like Masonry. And he was raised Catholic, and then when his sister died, he turned to Theosophy, which is something else that all these people have in common. Most of them are into Theosophy in some way, shape, or form, which can be very damning to the soul as well, because most people, once they get in contact with these ascended masters, they very few people come out of it, and it's a major cover up. Like when you see on the news these people committing these horrible crimes, that says we're just normal people, then they just snapped one day. It's a lot of times, and I'm not saying every time, but a lot of times they were talking to an ascended master or what some people call a spirit guide, and all of a sudden they tell them to do something horrible and they feel like they can't say no. But that's one of the big cover ups. He was also very fascinated with the life as Levi, which I think part four was about him. He had a major impact on the occult revival era, which never went away. By the way, it just learned how to disguise itself. It started learning how to become a chameleon in the '60s, specifically with the rock music. Then it started blending into pop culture more and more and more, and it still is today. He eventually fell out with the Golden Dawn and started the independent and rectified right of the Golden Dawn. And a lot of people think the Golden Dawn had disbanded, which the original group in London did, but over 8 different splinter groups came from that, and people will try to say it's not around anymore. It is still around today. There's one in California. There's many hidden across America and England and probably other parts of the world too. I recently heard a testimony of an ex-witch that came out of the Golden Dawn, and she was talking about horrible perverted ways they made her take communion, talking about Osiris, some idols all over the place, talking about perverted ways they made you read the Bible, and of course she got guided there by a Freemason. But speaking of that, something else that almost every person other than one has had in common so far, and we're at part 13 now, is that they were a Freemason, which this man was as well. Big shock. He was but he became a Freemason kind of differently than other people. He he came into Freemasonry knowing that it was dangerous, but seeking the higher degrees. He was also part of the Knights Templar, which it varies in states, but where I live, you have to get to a rank 10, well, the 10th degree in the Blue Lodge. But in some states, it's a completely separate, what they call a appended body. He also started a separate Rosicrucian order called Fellowship of the Rosy Cross. Now, while it's not something, well, none of this is a achievement in life because it you end up burning for it. But not just anybody can start their own order of this stuff. Anybody that got permission to start their own order of any of this stuff was somehow they were viewed as influential and important to the Freemasons, which is part of the hierarchy that's running the show. They're not running the show, but they are absolutely part of the hierarchy that is. And the Fellowship of the Rosy Cross, what made that a little slightly different too, and see, this is something that's weird about some of these people. Some of these people will be into all this evil stuff, but yet they'll still be a Christian. And I've said this many times. I consider myself an esoteric Christian as well, be just because my belief system is slightly different, and by that I mean I use the books that people claim to be pseudepigrapha or and apocrypha because my studies show that they are scripture, most of them, as long as they not come from the Nag Hammadi library, as long as they did not as they were not they're not the Gnostic books, as long as you can prove that they came from that era and they did not they don't contradict the Bible, especially they come from the Dead Sea Scrolls, then they are legitimate. Even some of the stuff that came from the Dead Sea Scrolls, even though some of that I know it not 100% is scripture, but it is reliable history. So when I say esoteric Christianity, it's because I believe in and I can prove that all this extra information is true, and there's really no denomination for this. So that's why I say that. But you have to be really careful when people claim that, because it usually means all this. And and I also say that because I do believe in a higher things of spirituality than the apostate American church believes, and I believe in the human potential. But overall, I believe in the Christian doctrine with the oneness Pentecostal doctrine. But normally, if you hear esoteric Christianity, it is a red flag, and you should get a specific answer. But it can mean something positive. And he was also in the rectified Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, which you don't really hear about that one very often. It's what makes that unique is that it's Scottish Rite Masonry, and here's where it continues to get just weirder. It's one of the it's a very old one. I believe it started out in the early 1700s, but you not only do you have to believe in a higher power like regular masonry, but you absolutely have to be Christian to get in the rectified Scottish Rite. So like, see, a lot of these people, their life is just so contradictory. Like, I did a very long video about Gerald Gardner, who started Wicca before this, and all his different all his belief system and all these groups that he was in just contradicted each other. And the rectified Scottish Rite doesn't have as many degrees. I believe it goes up to 7 or 8. Yeah, I think I want to say go up to 8, but he reached the fifth degree, which is Survey le ben faisant delite sainte. And what this guy is mostly known for, other than the White Rider Tarot deck, is he wrote very extensively about divination, esoteric Christianity, which, like I said, it's if done right, it can be wonderful, but it's usually done in a perverted way. He wrote on Freemasonry, ceremonial magic, also known as black magic, the Kabbalah. That's something else that you'll see pop up with all these people. Just like in almost every secret society lurks the Kabbalah, alchemy, the Holy Grail. He he apparently had a very heavy interest in, which people have different opinions on what it is. It's not it's not biblical. A lot of people believe that it was the holy chalice that Jesus would drink it out of at the Last Supper. Some believe it to mean other things. Some believe it to have a more spiritual meaning, which to the initiate it probably does. But to different people, it means different things. Or every group would tell you something different. No one's again to any of these groups. Um, he was most famously known for, other than the White Rider deck, for writing the Book of Ceremonial Magic, which was very similar to A Life as Levi's book, which is the Transcendental Magic. Um, he wrote Secrets of Freemasonry. He wrote the Occult Sciences. Many just godless evil books. The Holy Kabbalah, and they've released these his tarot deck over and over and over and over and over and over again. He had other decks too, but like I said, this is not to glorify any tarot decks. That's why I didn't put a whole bunch of different ones on the screen. Um, the most famous that most of you have probably seen is probably the Fool and probably the Devil. Um, uh, I'm not I'm not gonna talk about any of his other tarot decks because it's not important. Um, what was important was to understand that the tarot cards is the lead way to damning the soul, and while I was in the same group as Aleister Crowley, they both got into an I would guess you could say possibly a rivalry or some type of or gained some animosity towards each other, and both called each other frauds. And unfortunately, you can't really say that Crowley is a fraud. While in my opinion, he's probably the worst person to ever walk the earth. You can't really say that he was a fraud, and it doesn't really matter if author Edward Waite was a fraud or not, because what matters is that he corrupted, I would say, millions of lives with the tarot cards. And I'm trying to get a video out every day. I'll try to have another one up in the next 24 hours after I edit this one. This is probably will probably be one of the quicker ones to get done over the rest of the night.